Brazil's President Lula da Silva has held the first German-Brazilian talks in 8 years with Chancellor Olaf Scholz. The pair talked trade, the conflict in Gaza and restoring Brazil's standing on the world stage after years out in the cold under President Jair Bolsonaro. Our correspondent Peter Oliver is in Berlin. Good to see you, Peter. Now, the leaders have just held a news conference. Can you tell us what was discussed?
Well, they started off by signing a joint declaration between the two governments. It's the first time that the cabinets, the governments of these two countries have met in 8 years. So there was an awful lot for them to get through. The press conference ultimately starting well over half an hour later than it was supposed to. Part of the agreement between the two, quite a significant deal, that they want to have zero deforestation by 2030. Part of that agreement that it would be socially fair and ecological transition towards that incredibly ambitious and much needed target, many would say. Germany keen to work with Brazil in order to achieve that goal. Now, the other goals they're looking to achieve, well, they're on trade. Both Brazil and Germany want to see a very quick Mercosur deal. That's the deal between that South American trading bloc and the European Union for free trade between those two. Now, Brazil and Germany very much on side with that, reading between the lines and not having to look very hard from what President Lula da Silva was saying. France and Argentina, the sticking point at the moment. President Lula saying he can go to all of the meetings, he can speak to Buenos Aires and Paris as much as he wants, but if they don't want to do it, they aren't going to do it. He is, however, continuing to apply the pressure and encouraged Olaf Scholz to continue to apply the pressure. Realistically, what he was saying is, Olaf, you do it for Paris and I'll continue to do it with Buenos Aires. I think that's the takeaway from the press conference, really. However, both these two leaders very keen to get that free trade deal done as soon as possible. What we also saw was them talk about ongoing cooperation when it comes to maintaining democracies around the world. That was incredibly vague from both of the two leaders. But we did hear President Lula da Silva say that when he takes over as president of the G20 next year, the main focus of Brazil's presidency of the G20 would be looking to end global hunger. He said he finds it difficult to go to sleep every night knowing that there are millions upon millions of people not knowing what they're going to eat the next day.
Well, he's got his agenda, but let's talk a little bit about Olaf Scholz, because part of his, what he stands for, isn't it, is to improve ties with the global south. So to what extent does this meeting tie in with that?
Olaf Scholz needed a win from this meeting. He's struggling politically at home. He has made this, again, an ambitious promise to say that Germany is going to be the country that communicates with the global south from within the European Union. He hasn't done very well with that thus far. He went off to Brazil at the beginning of this year and had a meeting with Lula da Silva in Brasilia. It was ultimately disastrous because the two have very polarized, in fact, ultimately polarized views when it comes to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Brazil wants to end sanctions on Russia, doesn't want to see sanctions in the first place on Russia, doesn't want to see weapons shipped to Ukraine. Of course, Germany is both a big proponent of placing sanctions on Russia and one of the main exporters of arms to Ukraine. Olaf Scholz came away from that meeting back in January with his tail very much between his legs. This one, he will have taken away something of a victory from it, because it now does seem that Brazil and Germany are going to be that driving force of trying to get this what will be a very lucrative trade deal, if it goes through, a trade deal between the South American countries and the European Union through. Now, it is something that has been worked on for 23 years. The deal was done and dusted, we all thought, back in 2019. However, then the European Union said it wanted stricter rules on environmental controls, and that prompted both Brazil and Argentina to say, well, if you want that, then Brussels, we want some more things from you. It would seem, with the signing of this deal between Brazil and Germany concerning deforestation, there may be some movement on those environmental concerns. Be waiting to see see what Brazil and Argentina, you would imagine, are going to get in return from Brussels. And perhaps this could be the key that unlocks this very tricky, but ultimately what could be very lucrative deal. And if Olaf Scholz does that, well, this could be the win he was looking for, and it would certainly be him operating as that communicator to the world's global south.